Hello, colleagues. This is David, your General Secretary, coming to you 74 days later than my first video message at the time of the COVID pandemic that led to massive school closings, massive quarantine, massive change and disruption. In those 74 days, I wanted to briefly reflect with you a little bit about what we said we were going to do and what I believe we've accomplished. At the beginning of that, I said that solidarity was in our DNA. Organizing was in our culture. Communicating, mobilizing was just how we lived and how we worked. And that no virus was going to be able to take the energy and the commitment and the persistence of Education International, its member organizations, and the world's educators, and just have us go home, lock down, and hope for the best. Because quite frankly, the history of our movement and the history of the world has taught us that those are precisely the moments when the forces that are very much opposed to the things that we stand for and believe in take advantage of our absence. And colleagues, I'm so happy to report we weren't absent. We showed up for school. We showed up for our students. We showed up for each other. We showed up for our communities. In every region, and I'm happy to report this, in every single region and sub-region of Education International, from Europe to Latin America, to North America, to the Caribbean, to Africa, to the Arab region, to Asia Pacific, and in a couple of days actually to the Pacific Islands itself, leaders in those regions used the online tools to come together across time zones, against geographical and political barriers, to plan, to share, to strategize, to pronounce, to call out exactly what was happening. At the global level, the executive board met in an emergency online meeting adopting the guiding principles. We wrote to the ministers of education. The officers have now met twice, adopting a global guidance that is based on the research and the evidence from interviews and surveys that we've done with you and that you've been a part of. That global guidance, those 5 pillars, have been recognized now by almost every entire international organization, from the OECD to the World Health Organization to UNESCO to the ILO and beyond. This is what the world's educators say have to happen, has to happen. Those pillars, those principles, those values, those come from you. Those come from our collective knowledge, our collective will about making sure that the reopening of education, that the moving forward to school is different, and that the world learns about many of the things that we've already known. For decades, we have been decrying the underfunding of public education and its impact on vulnerable groups. We've been pointing out how the impact is on migrants. We've been organizing conferences and meetings and trainings around the rights of refugees to the right to education. We've been talking about what happens when girls aren't afforded an education and they have to go back to a house where maybe no one's watching and there are violent tendencies in that home. Or maybe, because we also know that poverty is violence, that parents have to choose in the time of an economic depression as a result of the lockdown whether or not those girls go back to school, or they have to go and get married, or they have to go and earn money. We've been talking about the fact that it is not the same impact when a pandemic hits. Yes, as human beings, it's all of us together against the virus. But some people are able to shelter in place in palaces, with Wi-Fi, with food stocks. Others are hundreds and thousands of kilometers from their home because they're migrant workers, and now they have to find their way back across India to get home. Maybe they're in a favela. Maybe they're sharing a room. Maybe they can't socially distance. All of the inequalities, all of the gross inequality is on full display. And colleagues, it's up to us to teach this lesson. Because this is, remember when we were all going to school, an education school, and they were telling us, the closer you can get to the reality for the student to learn the lesson, the more likely they will grasp and understand and move it up to the higher order thinking about action around that. Well, how closer can we get than seeing colleagues die from a lack of health care? Family members. How closer can we get than having neighbors, communities, unionists dealing with hunger, dealing with violence, dealing with all these things? Dealing with the fact that for some in the richest 1%, they just went from school to online. Their Wi-Fi, their broadband was the same. The teachers had been trained. They had their own laptops. They flipped on. Now, I don't say it was great. I don't think emergency online education experience has been the great disruptive, change that many in the edu businesses would have hoped it would have been. I think what it did do is, in terms of also exposing the great inequalities, it also showed us as educators at our best. Everyone now is talking about paying teachers more and education support personnel more. Yeah? They're saying they're seeing people delivering books, teaching special needs kids through glass, driving places, teachers driving into parking lots so they can get Wi-Fi, so they can teach their classes online. People are seeing what we have all seen, which is why we're all in this profession, which is why we're all in this movement. Yeah? Because this movement is about the present and the future. We have to take the lessons of now, and we have to not just teach people about the fact that there's no going back, but we need to fix this. And that means in the very near future, when the conversations are coming about the fact that the economic recessions brought on by the lockdowns are going to mean less money for public services, we have to be there to help our brothers and sisters in the public health services, talking about looking at countries that had good public health care and those like mine that didn't. Yeah? In terms of public education, all that good energy for paying teachers more, investing more, making sure that there's physical space for social distancing, infrastructure, health, nutrition, hygiene, all of that is for naught if we cannot translate into a political agenda that we drive through. If you don't want this to happen again, if you want to be resilient and ready and responsive for the future and equitable, you listen to these lessons. And sometimes, folks, they're not going to want to listen to us. So we're going to have to find new ways of making them. We're going to have to find new ways of organizing. EI is committed to that. We are already looking at blended ways of organizing online, in person, so that our presence, our energy, these webinars we're doing across sectors, categories, regions, all that knowledge, all of this, we're going to now need to focus it. What lays ahead is not going to be easy. We at EI know it's not going to be easy. But together, we are going to take the commitment, the creativity, and all that we've learned, and all those values that hold us together, and keep us. And I mean, one of the things I just love is that the word solidarity, remember at the end of Congress, solidarity? That's a word you hear on television news channels now. You hear it everywhere, right? The world is speaking our language. Do they understand its meaning? Well, that's up for us. We have to continue to teach. We'll have to continue to learn. We'll have to continue to mobilize and organize together, and we will persist, and we will resist. And together, we can build a new and better future for everyone. Thank you, colleagues.